Can I start by doing this? All right, I think we're going to get started. As I mentioned to people when they walk in, we're starting something a little bit new, and we're going to be putting we really want, oops, I got off my screen. We really want people, we know that one of the things that makes a good, safe community is knowing your neighbors and knowing each other. So we're trying to figure out how to make these meetings more interactive for people. And one of the ideas we had was to start with a community icebreaker. So when you walk into our meetings, we're going to try and have this up on the screen, and we're inviting people to talk to other people and ask them whatever the icebreaker is, or whatever else you want to do. Just a silly excuse to talk to different people that you maybe haven't met. What did anybody find out somebody else's favorite holiday tradition, or want to share their own favorite holiday tradition?
I just had a Christmas card for a while. I knew things started sending my parents Christmas cards on Facebook. They've asked me and my sister, and does this work? Yeah, it should be right. Okay, doesn't have to be right up. Okay. Yeah. So they asked me and my sister, do you know Barbara and Richard? Who are these people? We have no clue. Do we go to school with them? Did you go to school with them? But no, 2 years in, mystery still going. It's still going. It's awesome. This is the longest running joke I ever had. It's a long time. Yeah. Just a quick. I just passed out 2 small mics. If we want to leave them out, and if everybody's speaking, if you don't mind, just passing along. We are going to be recording this, posted on our website, as you know. So just know that there's little tiny mics. So hot mic situation, just in case. And Mike is with Mike. Great, let's get started. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Just gonna go ahead and do roll call. So Sam Schoenberg, present. Denny Schaefer, present. And I'm Mauricio Garcia, present and present. I always get that wrong. Prepositions are hard. Just grammar is hard. Today we're gonna have a quick meeting and mostly just focus on the cookie exchange. Jenny will tell us why the care package assembly is unfortunately crossed out. But we also want to give a recap of what we've done this year, just in case any new faces haven't seen our meetings before. That can be a good catch up to see what we've done in 2024. And then we have a table in the back full of cookies. So thank you for everybody bringing their cookies, and we have coffee back there too. So feel free to get up and grab some coffee. And then we're going to switch the order of things. I think this is actually out of order. I've got to update this, but we'll have public comment, and then the last thing we'll do is the quick exchange, so we can focus on the socialization portion of this meeting today. I did want to let everybody know. We want to let everybody know that we did have a special meeting this past Wednesday. We were told by the CCPSA staff that yesterday, was going to be the last day that we could submit budget requests, and we had a lot of remaining budget left, so we wanted to take full advantage of it because it is not available to be used next year. So we had reset at the beginning of the year. We have $5,000 per year. We did find out late. I think it was around May when we found out that we had $5,000 this year. So we tried to make the best. Yeah. Or June. Yeah, May, June. So we wanted to make the best use of the budget that we did have. This past Wednesday, we did vote to purchase a few more items. So Jenny has designed a new mental health information card. So I know we have the palm cards that are business card size. We have now poster size, so 8.5 by 11, and also postcard size, I should say. It really cool. We're excited to announce those to the community. We'll be sure everybody knows about them. But essentially, it's in what's in a certain situation, what mental health service or organization should you call? It's a really great explainer. We're gonna get them laminated so they're a little bit more long lasting, and we're thinking we can hand them out to the alders offices. Maybe even work with CTA to get them posted up on the CTA. So things like that. And those are ideas I think that came through some of our conversations with folks. So thank you for everybody for participating in those. Another thing is we want to buy a smart tablet and accessories, things like a case to protect it. We have our old school sign up sheets, right? So it's very old school, and we figured it could be more efficient. Also with meetings like this, it could help just make things a little bit easier. So I think we put in a request for a Google tablet, just to have to facilitate our meetings. And then we also wanted to get some branded office supplies, things like pens. Everyone's always excited for pens. So we want to make sure we got some things of that nature as well. So just a heads up that this is something that we voted on Wednesday, put in the request by yesterday, trying to take full advantage of that $5,000 that we have every year. So just turning to updates, going to let Sam talk to us about the nominating committee.
Sure. So for those who've been to meetings before, you'll know about the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability and the nominating committee. As a quick recap, for those who might not be familiar or might need a refresher, the CCPSA is a 7-member citywide body that has a lot of control over police oversight in Chicago and oversight of the accountability agencies as well. They select the nominees to be the superintendent of police. So Superintendent Snelling was first nominated by the CCPSA before being appointed by Mayor Johnson. They also have the ability to pass police policy or to rescind police policy. They set goals for the CPD superintendent, the head of COPA, and the head of the police board every year. And they work on general public safety and policing policy throughout the city. So there's how do you get on the CCPSA? There's a committee of elected district council members, one from each of the 22 districts in Chicago, and I represent our district on that committee. And we've worked really hard to create a good process to vet candidates and recruit applicants. There was a vacancy on the commission for a very particular type of commissioner, because there are requirements for both geographic diversity on the commission, and also certain categories of expertise. So this particular person lived on the west side of Chicago and filled the category of being an attorney with 10 years plus experience in civil rights, civil liberties, criminal defense, or criminal prosecution. So we had to find someone who fit both of those categories, lived on the west side, and had been an attorney for more than 10 years in those areas. We got a few really qualified candidates, I'm happy to say, after a lot of outreach, and nominated 2 individuals to Mayor Johnson last Friday. One is Monte, who has been in the Cook County Public Defender's Office for 30 years. She's done more than 75 jury trials. I think those are homicide jury trials. She's got just a wealth of experience in public defense, and brings a lot of passion and experience to the role. The other is Shay Allen, who started his career as a Cook County Assistant State's Attorney after going to Howard Law School. He then started his own law firm where he does criminal defense and civil rights litigation. So he's got sort of the whole gamut of experience. The decision's now in Mayor Johnson's hands. He's got 30 days to decide who he would appoint to fill that seat. But this is a picture of the whole committee after we voted last Friday.
Next, a quick workforce allocation study update for those of you who've been following this long process. We're not last month. We have all the contracts signed in the city, meaning we have the third party who's going to be conducting the study have signed. All the people who are funding the project have signed, and the Attorney General has signed, and CPD has signed. So we should be working on getting work started on this study. One of the things that they have talked about doing are a variety of community engagement sessions. There's a total of 8 that they've announced so far. The 3 remaining are those 3 right up on the screen. I have attended one over on the west side, and there's another one I'm going to go to the one on the 17th as well, just to kind of hear and understand what the process is going to look like. Unfortunately, there have been no engagement sessions on the north side. The city told us that they're starting, and the mayor has a people's plan that targets certain communities that are the most underserved and most in need of resources. So these community engagement sessions are focusing on those neighborhoods, but for workforce allocation study, that's really supposed to be, spanning the gamut of the whole entire city. Our voices and north side voices should be included. So we've been advocating and trying to talk to the right people and figure out how that can get done, and just really remind them that it's important that we're all part of this work. And really, we also want to understand how they're going to use the information they're gaining from the sessions to help inform the workforce allocation study. They've also kind kind of lumping it in with the consent decree and a couple other different initiatives of there. So just trying to get some clarity and transparency around how that's all going to work, and we will report back what we find.
Yeah. One encouraging thing is that we reached out to the mayor's office. They did tell us that they're planning on creating virtual sessions throughout the entire city. So the North Side will have an opportunity to participate in those conversations. But as Jenny is mentioning, our questions are, they have 3 initiatives: community policing, alternative response models, and the workforce allocation study, all being part of these conversations. For us, those all require educational pieces and very specific questions to ask regarding those topics. So we want to make sure that it's just a very organized and structured conversation so that we get everything that we need for the workforce allocation study, because it's a very complex topic that we don't know many other people outside of our district know about. So just something that we're keeping an eye on. In terms of burglaries in the district, I don't know if anybody saw the Block Up article or podcast, listened to the podcast on this. From, I think it was August through October, there was a pretty good spike in burglaries in our district. It was hitting our small businesses pretty hard. Focus on 2D restaurant that's over on, I believe it's Halstead, just south of Belmont. Mm-hmm. So they were hit 3 or 4 times, and each time it's $1,000 cost for them. And it was really disheartening and discouraging for the owners. So for us, we see small businesses, as a really big, important piece of our community. It brings in folks to the community. It's a great resource. So it's something that we want to keep an eye on. I did have a conversation with Captain Forbes yesterday specifically about this, and I can confirm that in the last 28 days, looking at statistics, burglaries have gone down by about 20% in the last month. Over a year, we've gone and seen an increase of about 25% of burglaries in the district, right? So overall, throughout the year, it's up. The reason that it's been down the last couple of weeks is because the captain was telling me that we've changed our tactics in terms of addressing these. Criminals were hitting these businesses around 4:30, 5:30 a.m. when our resources are lowest in terms of people, police officers on patrol. So the police department, what they were doing is they're shifting their resources accordingly for these times that the crimes are being committed. But as one could expect, criminals were then adjusting and then moving their times in which they were trying to hit businesses, and the police were following suit. They actually were successful, and the captain sent me a press release that I don't think was widely shared, but the police department has been able to catch some of these folks in the act. So that was actually really encouraging to hear. And they have arrested a few folks related to these, but one of the biggest issues is that these folks are hitting different districts at random. So they'll start in the 19th, or they'll come to the 19th, and the 17th, and the 20th, and they're bouncing around the city. So it's really hard to engage and catch these folks, but I am happy to report that the captain said that they have caught a few of these criminals. One of the conversations that came from this is the CPD chase policy. I'm just curious, to show of hands, I'm going to ask a question. If a police officer sees a burglary in action, do we believe that they have the authority to chase these folks? Just show of hands, yes or no? Yes, yes. Okay, so I have about 3 or 4 people say yes, that you can. Everybody else thinks no. So it is Rick called it out. It's a very judgment-based decision on the police officer, which is really hard for them to make in real time. They have to understand if there is a threat of violence and if the chase is actually going to put others in danger. So they have to evaluate the situation, like traffic, how many people are on the road, what time of day it is. So the fact of the matter is, yes, they are allowed to chase, but under very specific situations. And that's making it very difficult for police officers in real time to make those judgment calls. So that's something that I'm going to keep investigating and try to understand exactly when and where. But the captain told me, the understanding is if criminals believe that the chase policy is no, police officers cannot chase them, then they feel more emboldened to actually commit these crimes. So it's something for us to investigate. I still don't fully understand the situations, like the nuances, so I'm going to keep looking into that. But I just want to let you guys know that there's a conversation that we have been having with CPD command staff.
And one more, go ahead.
in the car. So are they employing the license plate readers as far as the next district to kind of follow up with where the car is going?
So yes, they do use license plate readers. One of the problems is that sometimes these cars are stolen or don't have a license plate in this situation, so it's hard to keep track of them. But the biggest improvement that we've seen over the last year or so is when the commander told us that they are working collaboratively across districts. So the tactical teams from 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, they're all working together and can communicate a little bit better because, you know, once someone crosses the 19th district, it's not like the pursuit has to stop, right? And so it's working a little bit more closely together. But yes, employing license plate readers as well.
And back in that other technology as well, you know, using drones. They have pod cameras all over the city in strategic spots, which are used to varying degrees. I would hope that they continue to use them more and more and more. But you know, how can we use drones and other things that we know are going to be less dangerous to pedestrians and other bystanders from a police chase? It's something that I know we've talked about in next year, trying to hold a meeting on different technology, just so we can all learn together. Okay, next is our community engagements and key meetings. Here, I'm going to go to the next slide. Thank you. Here's a couple that we have had in the past. This has only been 2 weeks or so since our last meeting, so it's a shorter list than normal. But just wanted to highlight a couple of the key ones. I was lucky enough to go visit the Office of Emergency Management and Communication, OEMC. They are the agency within Chicago that's in charge of handling 911 calls. They also do 311 calls, any type of emergency management that happens in the city for the DNC, if there ever were a big, you know, catastrophic type of weather emergency, this is where this is handled. And really, Chicago was like the first and maybe one of the few cities that has a building like this where all these different important people for communication and getting the word out and for disasters or emergencies are in one building. And they are really highlighting that as like being able to have more seamless communication between one another and just integrated response that, you know, you can easily talk to one another about as different things arise. So this is kind of we were not allowed to take pictures, but this was up the internet, off their website. This is the room where the 911 call takers are in. There's like everyone has so many computers in front of them, and there's computers on the walls, and like lots of different ways for them to monitor. But it's just interesting to see what it looks like in there, and I thought you guys would like a peek. I'm just gonna go. The next slide I wanted to for you guys, because I better understood how the flow chart works when you call 911, and I wanted to make sure our community had that information as well. So I just think, again, knowledge is power. The more we know, the more we know. So 911 calls in, a police call taker answer. So that I'm gonna actually stand up here maybe. So 911 caller goes to a police call taker. The police call taker has a series of different questions that they can ask that helps direct them to know if it needs to actually be like an EMT. Oh, this is supposed to say, I'll change that, fire. If it's supposed to be like a fire or heating-related emergency, if it really is a police emergency. And it also could be if it's a mental health care emergency, it would go to the fire call taker. So the call taker is the one that's directly talking to the 911, the person calling 911. The call taker has a computer in front of them and is typing in information depending on, you know, obviously the police call taker speaks with their information shows up on the police dispatcher side. I'm going to focus on this for a second. So they're populating information and it's showing up on the police dispatcher side. There are 2 dispatchers for every 1 to 2 districts. And so they see all the things that are coming in. They have a list of all the different officers and where they're located. And they're the ones that are speaking with the police officers and dispatching. They're doing like that 10-4, you know, they're doing that type of radio communication. They can jump on a phone call if they need to with the officers. But that is how how the flow chart kind of goes. I just thought it was interesting to really like be able to visualize that how this piece works and this piece works. These are the dispatchers and these are the call takers. And then like same thing on the fire side. The fire side has a dispatcher, and the dispatcher can then dispatch the fire, EMT, or the caravan. So the caravan is actually dispatched right now from the fire side of things. There might be hopefully the budget. I was like debating whether I wanted to share this or not, but because it's not finalized. But in the budget, they're hoping to have a new position called a behavioral health telecommunicator, which would be a third piece of this. And that could be that position from which the caravan would be dispatched. And we're excited about that from our standpoint, not only because it'll be easier to dispatch care when there's actually someone who's trained and feels comfortable dispatching the caravan, but it's also exciting because that could be a potential beginning point for alternate response for other types of non-police, non-fire responders. For those of you who were at the last meeting or who missed it, we did a call analysis of all the 911 calls that came in, and we found that 10% of all calls that came into the 19th district are related to parking. And one of the things that we really want to work towards is to try and take that off the police officers' plate, so they're not responding to those types of calls. They have more time to be out engaging with community, doing training, wellness types of things, responding to more serious crimes. And then this will take that off their plate. So that is an exciting news, and hopefully it's really, the budget I know is kind of a mess right now. I'm glad that district council members don't have a big piece in that, but it is nothing. It's not a position that they're really talking about because it comes from a different fund than like this big fund, that the general fund where they're trying to really distribute the money. So fingers crossed, it should be something that is happening soon.
And as a reminder, for those who aren't aware, the caravan, also this is a great radiator back here.
Yeah, or ghost.
I think they're working upstairs.
Okay. Good luck, guys.
I have a care update for next.
All right, but just for what it is, if you're not familiar or haven't heard that term in a while, it stands for Crisis Assistance Response and Engagement. It's still in pilot phase, but is moving hopefully into a more permanent phase, which has a mental health clinician and paramedic who can respond to mental health crisis calls where a police response is not necessary. So it has existed in our district for the last 3 years, and there are plans to expand it throughout the city. It's now housed exclusively through the Department of Public Health, whereas before it was a partnership between police, fire, and public health. We're hoping to see that program continues to be funded after COVID money runs out next year. That's going to be a big focus of ours, and that its hours are expanded, because right now, and it has always been the case, that the hours that they respond to mental health crisis calls are 10:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. on weekdays. So if your mental health crisis falls outside of weekday working hours, you're kind of out of luck with this program. We are hoping to expand that, but it's good that there's a place for it to go in OEMC.
Yeah. I also just want to highlight, like, there's two branches to all of our public safety system, like, needs. It's one side is only firefighters, EMT, and the caravan. Everything else is police on the other side, right? So to us, that's a big problem. Like, we want to understand how can we better situate all of our crises to the right response and not just put everything on police, because we know that police are not trained to handle every single situation. And we've heard from Commander Sani, things like mental health situations, they should not be responding to. We have other great professionals and resources that can be employed instead.
The next update is about the caravan, and Sam just gave you the big overview of what the care team is. Unfortunately, we don't have a huge update here. They've been working now since CDPH has taken over the caravan. There's a bunch of different like stamps and finalizations they need to do from the Department of Public Health. I'm sorry. There's a bunch of things that they need to do, and they need to get approval from the Illinois Department of Public Health. I talked to her on Monday, and they just needed to put these stickers in. She said she was going on Wednesday to pick up the stickers. I asked her on Wednesday if the bands are up and running. She said they're hoping on Monday they'll be up and running. Everything in city work is very, very slow. I have found, and it's frustrating. Hoping that Monday is when the bands will go out and start doing the work in the 19th district. Really, in the meantime, they've been doing a bunch of just outreach so people can get to know who they are and understand how it works. So yeah. Any questions about any of that? Great question. So right now, we actually just made a whole new graphic on this that we're waiting to get printed, but like we said, city takes a while. Right now, if you call 911 and the caravan is available, you can request the caravan and they'll send the caravan. If not, we've been from the beginning. This has always been a really important issue to us, and figuring out how to get the right people to the right types of crises. There are mental health. There are community-based organizations that have mental health crisis teams that you can call that will go out to a nonviolent mental health crisis emergency. Sam is getting them and passing them out. The two big ones that we've been focusing on, that we've been working with most because they are really doing the most exceptional job in the community, are Trilogy and Threshold. The biggest problem with these mobile crisis response teams is that they're dependent on what zip code you're in. So Trilogy responds to 60640, Threshold responds to 60613, 60640, and 60657. So they will come out, if you call these numbers, they'll come out to those areas in the 19th district. So we've just been trying to really increase awareness about these two different organizations, so people have them and know about them. We've been passing them out at meetings to businesses owners because we know that they see a lot of different things on the street. There's also the National Crisis and Suicide Hotline is 988, which is another number. They are largely a telephonic network service. If they do have some access to these mental health crisis teams that they can send out, but the frustration that we've had with 988 with the mobile crisis teams is that they're all, because it's not a standardized citywide thing, everyone kind of runs their own program and responds to different types of crises, has different hours, has very different consistencies of how often they answer their phone numbers, and it's a different phone number. And I feel like it's really hard for communities to know, okay, like I'm in this zip code, let me have the right phone number and so we really would love to see it all happen through 911, where the trained call taker would know what the right place to dispatch the call to. Good question. These are, yes.
Yes, all of these resources are, and this is, a stopgap. This is the resources that exist now, and the places where you can access their resources. We're working towards something that's more unified and more public, but this is something Jenny gets the credit for putting together.
And go ahead.
It says vans. How many are?
So there are 5 vans in 5 different districts, 1 van per district.
That's the new ones that are getting set to get deployed?
Yes.
They're like one working now, or none are working?
None are working now. There's going to be enough people staffed for 1 team per district Monday through Friday, the 10:30 to 4 o'clock hours.
Okay, I think that gets to what my follow-up was. I watched the budget meeting for the fire department, and they're talking about how short-staffed they are, having a hard time getting staff. So are these vans, is it staff in place?
Yes, they have the staff. Yep. So the good and the bad news about the CARE program is it's funded through ARPA dollars. So the good news right now is not going to be touched this year by the budget, but those ARPA dollars run out at the end of the year, and so we are going to need to start really making a case for expansion of these programs. and even keeping these programs, because we know that this is critical. We've heard our commanders say at past meetings, police should not be responding to mental health crisis. And so really trying to we know that this is something that benefits community and police. So this is something that we're going to be advocating for, keeping it in the budget, like Sam was saying, expanding the hours, expanding the reach.
One of the difficulties, of course, is I think by having this Monday through Friday 10 to 4 is most crises are probably happening at other times. So they're going to run this as a pilot, look at the data and say, oh, no one's using it, we don't need it, and shut it down.
That is a valid concern. The good news is the data that we have for the last 3 years, it's been very positive. One of the things that we are curious about is, instead of expanding to other districts, maybe expand the hours in one district. So these are conversations that we're trying to have. Ultimately, we want to get in a room with decision makers to see, ideally, we would want to have a very successful, comprehensive system and pilot in one place before rolling out to the rest of the city. So that's something that we're going to keep an eye on, but absolutely, that's a valid concern. Are these situations, or these hours not appropriately aligned with situations that actually happen?
And just to level set, like I have meetings monthly with someone from the mayor's team who's in charge of the rollout. Despite advocating for, keeping it in our district and expanding, they're pretty committed to first expanding across the city for these hours and then expanding the hours. We'll continue to advocate and see what we can do. She does continue to tell me that there is research that shows that towards the later half of that time is when more mental health calls come in. I'm waiting. She keeps telling me she's going to send me like the information, and I will share that when I get it. That's a great question. No, so the mental health van actually goes to the person in crisis. Mm-hmm.
Are there situations they actually neighbors think that they're important call? Other people are like choices. Stay home.
Mm-hmm. So that's obviously something that they think about a lot, and sure. Sure, yeah, no, yeah, and so when the dispatcher gets when the call taker gets the call, there's a series of questions that they do ask. If they think it's going to be a violent call, then they'll still send the police officers. Yeah, 100%, yeah. Correct, yeah. And then you could ask for like a CIT officer if you're making a call and you see it's a mental health related call, but it's still a violent call that needs police. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as mentioned before, the care statistics so far that have been put out for the last 3 years have all shown great success in terms of no escalation to force required by the police officers that used to address these calls. So it has been successful. It seems nonviolent. So we're hopeful that that's going to continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say if that becomes a problem, please reach out to us. If you see that happening, like that's what we're here for, and we want to be able to mitigate that. Other cities are doing programs similar, and there's lots, because this is something that we think a lot about is making sure the responders are safe. There's a lot of data and checks onto how they're feeling about when they're responding, and these responders feel very, very safe. I think, they're trained in these situations, and they know what are the ones that are for them. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm happy to, talk more and hear other concerns that you might have.
Yeah, just time check.
Okay. Okay. Just wanted to really quickly give Sam spoke a lot about the commission and a lot of the important powers that they have that are citywide. One of the big powers they have is they can write goals for CPD, COPA, and the police board. So I just wanted to quickly show you some of the draft goals that they presented at the last meeting around strengthening relationship between police and community. They did have a goal of completing the workforce allocation study, which we're excited about. There's a lot of talk in the city and now in the department around officer affiliation with extremist groups and making sure how we root them out, how we decide what is an extremist group, because there's a lot of gray in that conversation, but clearly it doesn't do anyone. It doesn't help anyone by having any type of officer with ties to those groups in our department. Focusing on member wellness is a goal of theirs, and stronger victim services. It's something that they're working on. I wanted to also, I'm going to try and move this quickly. The police board, their big goal is to go back and revise and review the rules and regulations for the governance of CPD. There's about 55 of these, they said. I think they were written in the 70s, and they haven't been looked at since then. There's like a goal. There's a you can't smoke a pipe, they said, which like how many officers are doing that these days?
Like tobacco pipe.
So they want to go back and revise them. We just want to they want community engagement. So they have monthly meetings, just like we do, on the third Thursday of each month. You can also go on their website to get some more information, and like we'll post these slides on our website as we always do. Next is COPA. COPA stands for the Civilian Office for Police Accountability. They are the ones whenever an officer, there's certain types of misconduct that are typically the more serious types of misconduct that COPA looks into. One of the one I really want to highlight is that last year their goal was to staff the policy research and analysis division of the department, which was really looking into the trends and like that cause to police misconduct. That is now fully staffed, and now they want to work on expanding and really digging into some of those patterns and trends that they're seeing that are causing significant amounts of misconduct, so that we can kind of be more proactive on some of those things. And in addition to that, this is something that the district council has wanted to see happen as well. Community mediation program happening between COPA and officers. It's a low. If an officer has a sustained allegation of misconduct that's on the record, that's like an official thing that shows up in the record. This mediation would be like if there's a dispute, if there's a misunderstanding, a way for the community member and the police officer have a conversation, more of a restorative justice type of practice, and be able to separate with a different understanding of how that situation felt for each person involved. So that is exciting. We always welcome our community groups, and we are happy to have a couple new faces here as well. One, as we always talk about, community, having a strong community who knows each other is a really important piece of public safety. We're excited to have the cookie exchange where we all can kind of talk and get to know each other better. Thank you for coming to that, and we hope you all stick around to kind of talk and get to know each other a little bit more. But does anyone have any community groups or anything that's going on in the neighborhood that they want to share with the group?
Let's chat after. We'll keep this focus on the community groups now, but let's chat after. Yeah, no, it's something that we want to keep an eye on, for sure. Okay.
One event that's going on is the Holly Jolly Holiday Cricket. It's today and tomorrow in North Center Town Square. It's there's like little shops and stuff you can go. I think Santa is there, and a Winter Queen is going to be there as well on Sunday. So just wanted to let people know about that.
All right, so we're going to talk about our community partnership plan. Just give our monthly update.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So as we do every month, we want to just show our progress in terms of how many goals we have, what we've advanced on. I do want to let everybody know that we have grown to 50 goals now. We started at 43 at the very beginning of this plan. It's now grown to 50. As you know, one task may lead to another or a few others. So we are looking at 50 goals total. We are at 36% complete. But in terms of those that have been started, in terms of in progress, ongoing, and completed, we're about 78% complete. And I just wanted to remind folks that we started this in May. So very proud of the work and progress that we've made in about 6 months. One thing that we want to call out, you can see the completed went from 13 to 18. That's 5. That's a lot more than usual, and we want to talk specifically about why. So we had a few goals in our plan that were kind of an ongoing basis. As you are wearing all today, name tags. That was one of our goals, right? It was going to be every meeting. So we reworded our goals so that we can mark them complete, just so that we know that this is something that we have taken care of and we've incorporated. So you can say, you can see the first one, goal number 2, used to be have opportunities for community groups to introduce themselves. Now it's incorporate opportunities for community groups to introduce themselves. So that's why it's complete. There's 4 instances in which we reworded those. They used to be ongoing. Now they're marked completed. We want to be fully transparent as to why you saw that spike of 5 goals completed, and just put that out there in front of the community. One of the things that we also wanted to hit on is the work towards alternative response model and working with OUMC. So we added a new goal. It's 9.2, as I mentioned. One goal can spawn many others. So this is 9.2. So we want to work with OUMC and understand what the process and the logistics are, or specifically around implementing this alternative response model. As Jenny mentioned last month, we introduced the idea of removing parking violations from the list of calls that police respond to. So what's that going to take? Is that going to require a new poll taker? Is that new training? How can the OMC work with CPD to actually get that done? Do we need to do a general order through the commissioner? So we're investigating that specifically through OMC because they are the ones that are in charge of dispatching police or dispatching other agencies to address these issues. All right. So with a 2024 recap, just wanted to go specifically in terms of what we've covered over the last year. You guys are free to like chime in.
Yeah, I think that we want to get to the cookie part. I feel like there's been a lot more sitting than we were hoping would happen, but I think the conversation is always good and we appreciate it. Real quickly, we won't read them all, but these are the things that we've talked about. And I think one of the real powers that we have as a district council and as a community is the power of understanding how these things work so we can understand where we want to go with them. And I think, you know, the fact that we all are very engaged and informed about the workforce allocation study has made it that push for it to happen in our district, not come from just us, but come from community members, and it makes it more, you know, I think the people want to hear from the community because we know about it and we understand why it's important.
Are there any topics that we covered this year that were especially like for those that have attended these meetings? Any topics that were especially interesting or would you like to see more of?
I love hearing about the Pretrial Fairness Act and the actual results of it back in July. That was
Okay.
the best meeting I think of for the year.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I think that's one of the other things that we've learned is that there's a lot of information and misinformation out there. So we want to be a source of truth, or at least the best source of source to get more information. So that was one of those reasons that we put Pretrial Fairness Act in front of the community specifically, right? So appreciate that. Anything else? Yeah, sure.
I really like the conversations about race and policing.
Awesome.
Those
Yeah.
were.
That was a highlight
Thank
for
you
us
for
as well.
attending those.
Yeah, thank you. And
Back in
this
that space.
and this, yeah,
Yeah.
And we're hoping to continue those as well.
Is there any council members I can go to? Okay, that was the
Yep, there's definitely. Yeah.
vision.
That's horrible. I'm sorry that happened. There are definitely resources available. Jenny mentioned COPA. That's one of the.
Oh, is that one of the commissioners?
No, I think let's talk at some point after this, but for specific issues of police misconduct, that would be the best resource for that as a complaint to the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, and we can make sure that you have that information.
Yeah, I mean, we're investing 1-3 phone calls. We don't have any.
Yeah. Yeah. COPA would be a great resource that's designed specifically for that. So, good question. We can find out. But yeah. Yeah.
We can talk more specifics a little bit later.
Yeah. We also wanted to just talk about some key accomplishments that were outside of our monthly meeting topics. We've been plugging the website over and over again. All this full list, we're going to send it in our newsletter, so you don't feel like you have to read this off the screen, but we just want to highlight a few things because it is the end of the year. We think it's a good practice to see what has been done over the last 12 months. Things on here are like we attended roll call, so that was really informative for us to see, and speak to officers firsthand. I know Rick and Mike are here, who are part of our data analytics working group, so thank you for joining us in that. The mental health palm cards that were just passed out, that was something that Jenny has taken on herself, so that was a big. And we had a neighborhood community group meeting and a social event, networking event. That was a big success as well. The other things that we've talked about are the nominating committee